Good evening, everybody. How you doing? How you doing? Welcome to Monster Territory, brought to you by the Foul Territory Network. Tough loss tonight on one of the best days of the season so far. Roman Anthony getting the call to the Red Sox today. We've all been waiting for it. We've been counting down the days, the minutes. I mean, we've just been waiting for this forever. And, some good things with Roman Anthony here tonight. There was a lot of excitement. It all kind of was happening in the last couple of hours there before the game. Felt like you didn't really have any time to digest it. Kind of just all happened in a blur, right? You saw some good things from him tonight. There was one particularly bad thing with him tonight. It's going to happen, right? I do have a thought about Roman Anthony being out in right field tonight. I was not a big fan of it overall. I'll get to that in just a little bit. But overall, an exciting day, not just for Red Sox fans, but for the game of baseball. This could be, he could be one of the next great players in the game. I mean, this guy in the minor leagues was tearing it up. Scouts have been all over this guy. I've made comparisons. People get grumpy at this for some reason. I've had people in the comments get mad at me over this. I actually see a lot. Alex Cora has said this himself, and I've talked with the guys over at Baseball America. You can actually go back a few months ago, and I did an interview with him. And I asked, hey, JD Drew, is that a good comparison to Roman Anthony? The player, right? There's a whole bunch of stuff with JD Drew, off the field, coming out of the draft, with the Phillies, that whole thing, right? That was kind of a mess and, times throughout his career. But I'm talking about the player. JD Drew, coming out of Florida State, was a highly regarded player, a guy that was highly touted. Scouts are saying this guy is going to be the next big thing in Major League Baseball, a guy that could hit for power, for speed. There's a lot of hype with him. And I see, and Cora himself has said, he sees a higher energy JD Drew in Roman Anthony. When I say I see JD Drew and Roman Anthony, that is a good thing, right? That is absolutely, to me, that is a high praise for someone like him. Anyway, I'm rambling here. I see a lot in Roman Anthony. Very excited to see what he can do in his career. But again, a great day for Red Sox fans, but I think just a good day for Major League Baseball. I think he's going to be one of the next best players in the game. Real quick reaction to the end of the game. We'll dive into this, right, during the post-game breakdown. But there was I don't like complaining about umpires very much. I'm one of those where I see you in the chat, Tommy Doyle. I'm one of those where I don't like to complain about umps very much because it always goes back and forth, right? Whether that's in a game or throughout a season, right? We're going to have games where calls go our way, right? But there was something there at the end, man. When it's an extra inning game and you're fighting for every chance to win a game here for the Red Sox, there was a bad strike call to Romy Gonzalez there at the end of the game where Zack Kelly, literally just the half inning before that, wasn't getting that call. That was a little frustrating, not going to lie. And that's coming from someone where I don't usually like to complain about umpire stuff, but that one was a little annoying. But that's where I can get to the point here too. One of the reasons I don't like complaining about ump stuff is because usually in those games, you have opportunities that came your way and you weren't able to capitalize. There were a lot of opportunities for the Red Sox tonight. They did come through a lot of times as well. Once again, if you're looking for a bright side here in this loss tonight, in this extra inning loss, once again, the Red Sox are putting runs on the board, but once again, inefficient pitching, mistakes in the field, coming back to bite you. Right, and missed opportunities along the way. We did have a bit of a pitcher's duel here tonight. Slightly, right? Not like, throwing up zeros constantly, but it was a pretty close game. I felt throughout the first half of the game between Brian Bayo, Shane Baz. Brian Bayo, I'd say up and down, but he continues to look better. He continues to be a guy that I think that you're okay with handing the ball to, right? There were a few games there where you weren't feeling confident with this guy. But Brian Bayo, he gave you a chance to win this one tonight. Unfortunately, the bullpen, a lot of ups and downs tonight. Brennan Bernardino, he had a rough seventh inning there tonight, and you saw the frustration from Bernardino. If you were watching the game, right, he was going back to the dugout. Man, I don't think I've ever seen that guy that ticked off before. It was a rough outing for Bernardino, and he knew it too. Luis Guerrero, he was up and down as well. It's just kind of one of those games, man, right? You fought hard. In the end, though, too many mistakes came back to bite you. Too many missed opportunities came back to you in the end. It is what it is, right? Let's get to the positive here first. Let's go over Roman Anthony's debut, right? We were all waiting for Roman Anthony here. I said this today in the emergency podcast when he did get called up. Thank you to everyone that came out to that today. That was on this channel, one of our biggest streams that we've done. So I do appreciate the support with that. That was a fun episode, right? Always love the emergency episodes. But Roman Anthony, you could have made the argument this guy could have been with the team on opening day. He got slowed down in spring training, ended up getting an illness. Up to that point, though, man, he was looking really good. I do think there was an argument for him to be with the team. I think he showed you a lot in spring training. Who knows what the details were, why he didn't break camp with the team. In the end, though, I thought there was an argument for Anthony to be up at least after a few weeks, maybe even after the first month. But as time went on and you saw what he was doing down in AAA, you're thinking, like, what else does this guy have to do, right? This guy was hammering home runs, 497 feet just, a few days ago, grand slam for crying out loud. And, you see Craig Breslow saying, like, oh, well, we want him to work on hitting breaking balls in the zone. And it's like, even scouts out there kind of saying, like, what are you talking about, right? You had scouts out there saying, this guy should be with the team. But in the end, it ended up being good timing. You just won 2 out of 3 in the Bronx, a series that can give you some energy moving forward, right? We've been waiting for that turning point for this team. It feels like after April, the calendar turned. It feels like you haven't fully been able to get going. But this past weekend at Yankee Stadium, you're feeling like, all right, okay, here we go, right? And now Roman's coming up as well. So it felt like good timing, even though it did take a while. But Roman's debut ended up getting 5 ABs tonight. He had a healthy helping of at-bats tonight. First AB, swinging at the second pitch, popped out to left. The first thing that jumped out to me with Roman Anthony in that AB, you could see the bat speed, right? There was some energy in that bat speed and that swing. Sure, it was a pop out to left, but you could see it. And you saw it in the next AB over in the bottom of the fourth. He hit a screamer back to Shane Baz, 111 miles per hour off the guy's leg. If that hit me, I probably got a broken leg, to be honest with you. I don't know how the heck that guy was still walking after that. But you see what people are talking about. If you haven't really watched Roman down in the minors, you kind of saw firsthand, right? You didn't see it on the stat sheet, but you could see it with his swings. You could see it also just with his play discipline. He was taking pitches. He just looked very confident at the plate. He looks and feels different up there. There is a different aura about him. I don't usually use that word very much, but if there's ever a time to use the word aura, I feel like it's there with Roman. Third AB, ended up striking out against Garrett Clevinger. Fourth AB in the 7th inning, he did get a walk with Trevor Story on second base. And then he ended up coming through with an RBI. So first career game, ended up driving in a run. It was on a ground out, but hey, ended up contributing to the cause here tonight, right? Final line, he went 0 for 4, RBI, did have a strikeout along the way. But the messy part with Roman Anthony tonight was unfortunately a massive error out in right field tonight. Ended up getting by him. The Rays ended up scoring on there. Not a good look, obviously. It was a play that looked like he should have gotten. It was a hard hit ball from Yandy, but still, I'm not sure what happened on that one, but, can't let that ball get by you. I will say though, and I'm not trying to make excuses for Roman here, But I am wondering, I was wondering too, why was he playing out in right field, right? When they came out with the first lineup, Cedar Rafaela was penciled in for right field. In my opinion, I don't know. What do I know? But I just feel like putting Roman out in right field in his debut at Fenway Park, which is a spacious right field, when he didn't play that much right field down in the minor leagues. He played a lot more left and center, right? Right field was pretty limited. He only played 31 games in his minor league career out in right field, and all of his other games were in center and left or DHing. So I don't know. It just felt a little. I don't know if that's really the reason, but still, I thought it was a little interesting, right? I thought you could have put Seti out and right. That's in my opinion, I feel like that's what I would have done, right? I know Seti's obviously a great defensive center fielder, but I don't know. He's more of a trustworthy guy in the outfield. I'd feel more confident with Seti playing out in right field right now, just because he has the speed. He can track down a lot of balls out there. I know it's going to be some different routes. I know it's going to be some different bat angles and whatnot. But to me, I think Seti he's a plus defender out there. I think he personally should have been out in right. That's just my thinking. I was a little surprised when I'm thinking, okay, all right, they're putting Roman out in right. Okay, I liked Seti out in right, but then they switched it up, and it's like, well, what can you do? Yeah, I would have done Roman out in left. I understand maybe you got to get used to that green monster as well. That's a different thing. There's a whole bunch of nooks and crannies at Fenway Park, so it's an interesting topic. Let me know where you think Roman should have played tonight. Do you think he should have played in the left, center, and right? Let me know down below in the comments. I'm very curious to see what you all think. I would have gone with him in left field. I would have gone with Duran out in center, and I would have gone with Seti out in right, personally. It is what it is. It's hindsight now, but just not a good look overall. But you know what? You saw some good things with Roman Anthony tonight. To me, the bat speed really jumped out at you. The hard hit ball back to Boz, sure, he was out on the play, but you can see why this guy is looking special. But everybody, before we do go further into the breakdown tonight, we do have a word from our sponsor.
By now, you know about Arena Club. Buy, sell, trade, open up slab packs to get a card that you don't think you could get usually, but the Grails will tell you that, for example, there's an Aaron Judge rookie card in this week's slab packs, so make sure you check those out.
No doubt. Those are what you want, the Grails. Mm-hmm. Aaron Judge Grail is awesome, graded, traded if you want, tell you how much it's worth, whatever you want to do, and I'm a big Michael Jordan fan with my 23 shirt on. There's a Michael Jordan Grail in there that I'm looking forward to try to get.
20% off your first slab pack or card purchase at arenaclub.com/foul. Use code FOUL.
All righty. Let's get to the post-game breakdown, and let's talk a little Brian Bayo before we get to the offense here. Now, like I said, with Brian Bayo here tonight, he's looking better, right? He went deeper into the game tonight. That's what you've been waiting for with Brian Bayo. He went 6 2/3, 7 hits, 4 runs, 3 earned. Remember the error from Roman Anthony that ended up not going against Bayo there, and 4 strikeouts along the way. 82 pitches overall for Bayo tonight, leading with sweepers and sinkers. He did mix in some 4-seamers as well. Had a few changeups along the way. The changeup had better spin tonight, so I'm wondering if maybe he's starting to get a bit of a better feel on the changeup. That's been a pitch for him in the past that's been very good, but this year the movement is lacking on it. I don't know what's going on with it. He's not throwing it to righties. He's only throwing it to lefties. So I'm not sure what's going on with him in the changeup this year, but he has got to find a way to get that pitch back in the repertoire. I feel like once he does, and it's an effective pitch for him, I think, sure, this line tonight, it's fine, right? But, I want to start getting back to those lines where he's going 7, maybe 3, 4 hits along the way, 0 earned. Again, not sure what's happening with that changeup, but you did see a bit of a better spin rate on it tonight. Maybe that could be a sign for things. In the 4th inning, he got into some trouble there. Yandy and Aranda had base hits back-to-back. And then this is an interesting one, right? Junior Caminero had an infield fly. This could have been a triple play, right? Infield fly. They had runners on first and second. In that situation, it's not a force out, right? On that, when the ball came down, right, Marcelo Meyer, he tried coming in to get it, ended up missing it, but then Wong ended up getting it. He threw it to third, so the Rays runners, they didn't go back to the bags. They just kept going. And then Wong, he threw it to third. Story could have tagged the runner out at third, and he didn't. He just threw it to second. Christian Campbell ended up getting the tag at second base. You could have had a triple play, right? Because you had the infield fly. You could have tagged him out at third, and you could have got him at second too. So I'm not sure what happened there. There was a lot of confusion going on, but I just feel like that's something you just need to know at this point, right? I know everyone got a little confusing, but still, someone like Trevor Story, I feel like I don't know. I don't know what happened in the moment. Obviously, I'm not there on the field. I don't know what's happening, right? Maybe there was something that we didn't see where they got confused. I don't know. But in hindsight, that could have been a triple play. You got the runner out in the infield fly. You could have tagged out at third and then tagged out at second. That could have been a birthday gift. And in the end, ended up leading to a run for the Rays. Jake Mangum, he had a pretty good night here tonight. RBI base hit. They made it 1-0. Ran into some more trouble in the fifth inning. Jansen with the hit by pitch. Brandon Lowe, RBI base hit. They made it 2-0. And then that's where the hard hit ball from Yandy to right field got by Roman. And that was an error charged on him. And so, in the end, I just feel like, you kind of made some mistakes along the way here. You could have done a little bit more to back up Brian Bayo, I think. It is what it is. It was just a bit of a messy night, I would say, both on the pitching side of things as well as we saw some defensive miscues as well. But let's get to the offense here, shall we? When it came to this offense tonight, again, still a lot of good things going on here, right? We talked about in the Yankee series, right? That's the most consistent this offense has looked all year, right? We've seen the outbursts along the way. We've seen, this team put up 19 runs against the Cardinals. 19 against the Orioles, right? We've seen that firepower come out, but it feels like it's so far and in between, right? But we've seen it more consistent here over the last few games, and you did see it here tonight. I will say, Shane Baz, this guy was looking nasty out of the gate. He struck out the side in the first inning. Second inning, though, you got the bases loaded. Connor Wong with the ground out. He was originally called safe. It got reversed. Connor Wong, it's still doesn't have an RBI going back to last year. Fifth inning, Marcelo Meyer with a double, Seti with a base hit, but then Wong with the double play. No, he didn't get the RBI. You don't get an RBI on a double play. Still no RBIs for Connor Wong. But that made it 3-1, right? But again, big missed opportunity there, man. Wong, sure, over the last couple of weeks, he's gotten a couple of hits here, but it's really rough right now. It just feels like anytime he's in this lineup, it just feels like you might as well just skip that spot in the lineup and just take the out. Sixth inning, Devers with the walk, Toro hit by pitch, Story with a strikeout. A couple of times here tonight, Trevor Story wasn't able to come through. Had a couple of hits tonight, but a couple of high leverage spots he didn't come through. He didn't come through for you. Clevinger, he came in to face Roman, got Roman on the strikeout. Garrett Clevinger was looking pretty nasty in that AB. He was getting Roman kind of locked up a little bit. Christian Campbell with a hit by pitch. Romy came in to pinch hit. Big spot for Romy. Double down the right field line that ended up tying up the game, but then Seti, couple of runners on, striking out. Seventh inning, Eric Orsi came in to pitch. Wong did draw the walk, so nice to see that Wong gets on base a little bit sometimes. Duran had the base hit up the middle. This guy's an absolute psycho, Jarren Duran. It looked like just a base hit up the middle, and he turned this thing into a double. Duran is a freaking psycho. He's insane. I mean that in a good way. Devers with a strikeout on a nasty splitter. Holy cow. Devers was just, I'm surprised his shoes didn't fly off with how he was flailing up there. My goodness, that splitter was so nasty. The arm action on that pitch, it looks like the guy's going to be throwing a hard fastball. And then the splitter just comes out of nowhere. Holy cow. I can't even blame Rafi for that. It was just nasty. Toro ended up getting a ground out that scored Connor Wong to make it 6-4. Manuel Rodriguez came in, the righty. Story, RBI base hit, ended up scoring Duran. So, again, he did come through here. That made it 6-5. Roman with the walk. But then Christian Campbell striking out, the bat flying out of his hands. I feel like this has happened a few times now with Christian Campbell. What is going on here? The bat is just literally it feels like it's going to fly into the stands. 9th inning, the Red Sox tie it up. Rafi with the walk. Toro with the double. Story, though, with the fly out. This is where Roman Anthony, he was able to come through. RBI ground out. They made it 7-6. But then Christian Campbell, it's so funny with Christian Campbell, man. The guy has just such a violent swing. And then it just leads to just all these like weird looking plays at times, man. Right? Just incredibly hard swings. Hard chopper into the ground, took a high bounce. Christian Campbell's got some speed on him, ended up beating it out at first base. That scored a runner. That made it 7-7. So, the Red Sox tonight, back and forth, making this, a game where you can look back on and be like, all right, there was a lot of fight with this Red Sox team, but just again, too many things that came back to bite you along the way. 10th inning, Narvaez with a strikeout, Duran with the flyout. Devers did get intentionally walked there. Toro ended up beating out a bad throw from Jonathan Aranda. Said he scored. That ended up tying it yet again. But then Trevor Story flying out. This is kind of, sure, he did come through a little earlier in the game, but oh my goodness. No disrespect to this guy. I got to pull up the name one more time. Was it Ian Seymour? Ian Seymour. No disrespect, man. I think they were saying on the broadcast that he was from Connecticut, but this guy was throwing like 90 mile an hour, just meatballs down the plate, and Trevor Story wasn't able to come through. I'm thinking, you got to be kidding me. Got to be kidding me, man. 11th inning. Yeah, they pinch hit Roman for Ref Snyder. They were saying on the broadcast that this could be the first time maybe Roman Anthony's ever been pinch hit for in his career. But I get the spot. Ref Snyder's very good against lefties. He drew the walk. Christian Campbell to line out to left, and then Romy striking out on a low fastball. That Zack Kelly, we'll get to the bullpen in here in just a second, but Zack Kelly, he literally threw this pitch just, moments before and ended up getting a ball on that call. But on this one, Romy, it was like the same exact pitch, and he got called strike 3. Now, let's get to the bullpen here. Let's kind of backtrack a little bit. Bernardino did not have a good 7th inning. We talked about this in the intro. He came in to face a left-handed hitter, Josh Lowe. RBI double, made it 4-3. And then he also had a miscue with his defense, right? Threw a ball into the outfield on a pickoff at second base. Wild pitch to Aranda, a left-handed hitter. That made it 5-3. Aranda had a blooper that made it 6-3. So, Bernardino, this guy's been just a workhorse out of the pen this year. But, these are some spots, man, that you got to come through. Against Lowe, a left-handed hitter. Against Aranda, a left-handed hitter. The bad pickoff attempt. It was just a messy inning, right? Luis Guerrero, he was pretty up and down with his outing. He did have a scoreless 8th, but a messy 9th inning. Caballero had a walk. But I didn't like this because he wasn't holding this runner. Just wasn't even holding him on. Like, was it? This guy's got some speed, and he's not even doing anything to hold this guy. Ended up stealing second, stole third as well. Just another small thing that these little details keep coming back to haunt the Red Sox. Yandy with a walk, Aranda with a sac fly that made it 7-5. Chapman had a good inning, but then Kelly came in. I know Kelly's been looking better. He just had 4 strikeouts against the Yankees a couple of games ago. But, I think Greg Weissert has graduated from the guy that is, giving me a heart attack now. Now it's Zack Kelly for me, I think. He walked low. Caballero had a sac bunt to advance the runners. Big strikeout to Yandy Diaz, so big ups for Zack Kelly there. They intentionally walked Aranda, and then a bases-loaded walk to Caminero. That made it 9-8. Again, that was the sequence where you had a couple of decent pitches. They were out of the zone. Oh, goodness gracious. That just scared the bejesus out of me. Everybody, we are going to start wrapping this up here on Nesson. If you are watching this on Nesson, we are going to wrap it up right there. We're going to finish the show over on YouTube. So if you want to see the rest of the show, come on over to YouTube to Monster Territory and see the rest. But everyone on Nesson, go enjoy the rest of your night. Have a good rest of your day, and I'll talk to you next time. But finishing up here, the umpire needs to be a bit more consistent there. If it's one thing where, maybe a lot earlier in the game, right? You make a call, but then you don't make it, later on. Okay, whatever. A lot of time in between. But when it literally just happened, I mean, you got to be a little better on that one, in my opinion, right? Zack Kelly, I'm going to be honest, I wasn't a big fan of Zack Kelly just walking off of the mound the way he was doing. He did that on a couple of pitches there. And when you looked at the box, on the TV, they were clear balls, right? They weren't really, in my opinion, competitive pitches. And Kelly was walking off the mound like he threw a 98-mile-an-hour fastball on the corner and didn't get the call. But then it's just hilarious that, Romy ends up taking that pitch and then he gets called strike 3. So I don't know, just frustrating. Just frustrating. Mangum ended up having the base hit that made it 10-8, and that ended up being your final. So just a frustrating night. It is what it is. You can respect the competitiveness from this Red Sox team here tonight. You can respect the offense, staying consistent. I mean, they've now scored 35 runs over the last 4 games. I mean, that's looking very good, but you got to clean up the defense. You got to clean up the pitching. Bayo's got to – Bayo – I'm not even going to get on to Bayo because he pitched well enough tonight to give you the win, right? But the bullpen, just got to be a little cleaner there, especially, Bernardino, whatever. You can say what you want, when it comes down to, making effective pitches and whatnot. But, throwing the ball in the outfield on the pickoff, that's something you just can't do. Can't do that one. That's inexcusable. The Roman error, personally, I don't think he should have been out in right field. I don't know. I just think that's too big of a task to ask. I don't care how good Roman Anthony is. I just think it's just such a spacious outfield out there and right. I would have been more comfortable with Seti going out there. The infield fly, you could have prevented a run that inning. There was a lot of things that you could have done better. I will respect the fact that they competed here tonight. They were tying up the game on multiple occasions, back and forth game all night tonight. It is what it is. It is what it is. Before we get to the end of the show, I'm going to get to the shout-outs and the Game 2 preview, but we do have one more word from tonight's sponsor.
It's summertime, and if you want to let it all flow out, but the hair is thinning, there is a solution for you. And Kratz, it's called Neutrifold. Tell the people what they need to do.
It's easy. You just got to hit up Neutrifold.com and use our code FOUL. And I'll tell you why, because you're going to have thicker hair. That's it. If that's your desire, you want thicker hair, there's no other place to go than Neutrifold.com and use the code FOUL for us.
#1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement brand trusted by over 1.5 million people. See thicker, stronger, faster growing hair with less shedding in just 3 to 6 months with Neutrifold. For a limited time, they're offering the FT fam $10 off your first month's subscription and free shipping when you go to Neutrifold.com and you enter the promo code FOUL, F-O-U-L. Find out why over 4,500 healthcare professionals and stylists recommend Neutrifold for healthier hair.
All righty. Well, that's the wrong screen. Hold on a second here. Let's get back to it. Let's go over a couple of shout-outs here. Romy Gonzalez, 2 for 3 tonight. Had the double there, a couple of RBIs. Seti went 2 for 4 here tonight. Christian Campbell, Abraham Toro, love the hustle from those guys to keep innings alive, also to get some runs across the board as well. Aroldis Chapman, he looked very solid. There's a few other guys here tonight, really contributing. You did score 8 runs tonight. There were some good things along the way. And you know what? I'll shout out Roman Anthony as well. Yeah, he ended up driving in a run in his major league debut. Like I said, you saw a couple of good things. Hard hit ball, 111 miles per hour back to Boz. Seeing the good bat speed. I'm excited for Roman Anthony, man. Let this sink in over the next week and let's just see what he does. I'm excited to see his game, man. Also, do want to mention this. If you did miss this on the emergency podcast today, Wilyer Abreu going on the IL. Let me actually double check really quick here when it comes to Wilyer. With Wilyer, so let me just make sure. So a strained left oblique for Wilyer Abreu. So that could be something that really lingers for a little while. We got to keep our eye on that. I haven't seen the comments on anything about that yet. It's been very busy over on my end. But Wilyer Abreu, strained oblique on the 10-day IL. Usually those obliques, man, I don't know. I could see him being on the IL a little longer than that. We'll just have to wait and see. But let's get to the Game 2 preview. And for the matchup tomorrow, Lucas Giolito back on the bump. He was not very good against the Angels in his last start. 1 2/3, 8 hits, 7 earned runs. He looked terrible there. So let's see if he can do anything against the Rays. Now, with Giolito, more of a fly ball picture. But with the Rays, they have, when you take a look here at the ground ball percentage in Major League Baseball, they rank 3rd overall in ground balls. So Giolito, maybe this could end up being a pretty decent matchup for him, where the Rays are not really a team that necessarily puts the ball in the air a ton. So maybe this could end up working out for Giolito here. We'll just have to wait and see. Hoping for a bounce-back performance here. He definitely could use it. Ryan Pepiot, he did get hit pretty hard against the Red Sox his last time out, so this could end up being a good matchup for the Red Sox here. So far, again, the Red Sox did see Pepiot not too long ago, but a lot of guys, a lot of eyeballs on Pepiot up to this point. Seti, he's hitting .444 against him in 9 ABs. Jaron Duran, he's got a home run off of him. Trevor Story, he's hitting .600 against him, has a home run against him. Toro, he's got a few ABs. Narvaez, a few ABs. Devers hasn't had a whole lot of success against him up to this point. But against Lucas Giolito, not really a whole lot of success here. Caballero has a hit against him, hitting 1 hit and 2 ABs against him. Yandy's had 16 ABs against him, has a home run. Danny Jansen also has a home run. Tice has a home run as well. So, some guys have gone deep off of him, but I think this can end up being a pretty decent matchup for Giolito tomorrow. Let's see how it unfolds. But everybody, we are at the end of tonight's show. I appreciate all of you stopping by. Ended up being a disappointing end to tonight, but it was an exciting day. You came off a feel-good series win against the Yankees. You got the Roman call today. Finally, I'm just glad we can just stop talking about it, because it was getting so frustrating. I could not believe this guy was not up with the Red Sox at this point. Super frustrating. But we finally have Roman. We got the big 3 up with the Red Sox. Let's hope they all stay here with the Red Sox for this year. No one gets sent back down. They're just together. They can grow. And hopefully, this Red Sox team can figure it out. Again, we're kind of falling back into that, you take a step forward, but now you're taking another step back. So, 32 and 35. You got, or is it, hold on, is it 32 and 35 now? Or no, that's 32 and 36 now, right? That's, hold on a second. I don't know why. Yeah, it's 32 and 36. I don't know why that's not updating. But you're back to 4 games under 500. You're 4.5 back in the wild card race. I don't know. You got to start putting some wins on the board. But to do that, you're seeing the offense. You're getting the better starting pitching here. You got to clean up your game. Let's see if the Red Sox can do it. Everybody, go enjoy the rest of your night. We'll be back here tomorrow for the Game 2 post-game coverage. I'll see you then.